Back on the countdown with Dean Kirk at number, let's see where we're at on this fancy playlist. August 29th, 1987. I was quite taken with this record too. I was rooting for this song, hoping that it would become a hit, but it wasn't very big. Did not become very big at all, but nonetheless, up 8 from number 35 to 27. The other ones with Holiday. Fancy playlist of August 29th, 1987. Welcome back with Dean Kirk. I tell you what, Holiday by the other ones, a fun record to listen to, a record that would put a smile on your face, a song that would be a perfect backdrop if you're going on a road trip. Top down, convertible, the song blaring out of your radio, got a driving backbeat, a pageantry of Euro dance, Euro pop, Euro disco. Yes, that's right. I'm going to say the D word, disco. I'm not ashamed of it either because it's just a fantastic record. Comes with a punchy horn section and two people singing on this record. Alf Klimek. And there's Janie, I believe I'm pronouncing her name right, Janie, Jayney. Oh boy. Well, first off, the way Alf sings this song, that deep voice, that sort of macho, half rap, half spoken, half sung, really brilliant. And Janie, oh God, I'll go into her part in just a minute, but his part reminds me, the way he sings on this record, the deep voice reminds me a little bit of Mexican radio by Wall of Voodoo back in the summer of '83. Now, that nostalgia on top of nostalgia right there, boy, it's like putting a cherry on top of a cake or well, anyway, or birthday cake. Sweet record. It's definitely a sweet record. Oh, boy, Jayney Klimek. She's got a heck of a hook on this record. I love the way when she sings when she starts singing on the verse, but when she starts leading into the chorus, her voice changes keys in such a scintillating manner. It adds to the richness of this record, the richness of the melody of this record. Holiday by the other ones. All right, here's the deal about them. This was their only top 40 hit in America. They only came out with about 2 or 3 albums. The other ones, it was an international group of sorts. 3 siblings from Australia, Alf, Janie, and Johnny Klimek from Australia. And from what I've read, it was Alf's idea to go to Berlin, to go to Germany, to start a band, to get a record deal, get something really ginned up, get something going. And it wasn't quite as pleasant for the other brother, Johnny, because when they got to Europe, when they got to Germany, he worked at the cleaners, he worked at the Indian restaurant, didn't like the European winters either. Obviously much different from what it is in Australia from where they're from. But nonetheless, around late 1983, early 1984, depending on what source you reference, they got together, they pulled in 3 fellows from Germany. They got from Berlin, a guitarist, a drummer, a keyboard player. They formed the other ones. They got a deal with Virgin Records in 1984. Their self-titled album was released in 1986. And the first single off the album, We Are What We Are. And I listened to that record for the first time. A bit heavier, less poppy, maybe more of an anthem than Holiday. Didn't do that well here in the States, though. Only went to number 53 on Billboard's Hot 100, although it did make the top 40 in New Zealand and Canada. And then the second single, Holiday. Now, here in the States, man, I got into this record. This was a perfect Euro dance, Euro pop record that should have been at least top 20. Maybe not number 1, but at least go up to number 12 or 13 or 14 or at least number 8 or 7 on Billboard's Hot 100. And, I've read some YouTube comments of people saying this is an underrated band. This is an underrated single. Well, I do agree. This was an underrated single. Debuted at number 90 on Billboard's Hot 100. Took its sweet time to get into the top 40 on Billboard's Hot 100. Wasn't until mid-October, actually about a month after this fancy playlist was composed, about 5 or 6 weeks maybe after this fancy playlist was composed, before the song went into the top 40. It peaked at number 29 and started falling. Now I read a blog about this song. Did some research when I researched this record. I outsourced a blog, and the blogger, he really loved the record, and I think he was a little puzzled as to why it wasn't a bigger hit. And I think part of the explanation is it all goes back to the conservative nature of top 40 or CHR radio. A lot of these music directors, I'm telling you right now, a lot of these program directors and music directors, they have very, very strong opinions of what to add and not to add. And they're not going to add, a lot of them, quite a few of them are not going to add a record by an unknown artist unless that unknown artist has garnered a tremendous amount of momentum, say like Frankie Goes to Hollywood. And that's very unfortunate because a lot of people missed out on a good record. Lots of good records go through the cracks. That's one dynamic. I'm sure there are others. I don't know how well this record was promoted by the record company or anything like that, but the song only got us just barely made top 30 here in the States. But overseas, though, went to number 4 in Germany, top 10 in New Zealand, top 30 in Switzerland, top 20 in Austria. And they record one more album. I got to go into this a little bit, too, because they record... Oh, wait a minute. I forgot about this. Boy, Lord have mercy. If I missed this part right here, I'd kill myself. The album, their self-titled album, was produced by a guy named Christopher Neal. He was an Irish guy, but he was a British producer. Boy, this guy had experience. It's a little wonder why this record is so good. And that other record before that, Christopher Neal, he worked with Paul Nicholas. Remember Paul Nicholas, the British actor? You know, now in England, he had some hits like Grandma's Party back in the mid-70s. Paul Nicholas. It was produced by Christopher Neal, and then Paul Nicholas had that big American hit, Heaven on the 7th Floor, back in the fall of 1977, produced by Christopher Neal. And Christopher Neal, he produced a song after that by Marshall Hain, Hain, Dancing in the City, back in 1978. It was a British hit, went top 10 in England, but not so much here in the States, went to 43. But my goodness, look at this roster right here. When I researched this, I was like, doggone it. The guy who produced this album by the other ones, he produced Modern Girl by Sheena Easton, Morning Train, 1981, Mike and the Mechanics, Silent Running. All I did is scintillating the upbeat, the pop upbeat slick. All I need is a miracle. One of the perfect 80s pop records produced by Christopher Neal. He's also worked with Amasulu, Dollar, and Shakin' Stevens. Shakin' Stevens, who was really popular in England back in the early to mid-'80s, but not much traction here in the States. Now, the album that came after that, Learn to Walk, they worked on this album in England, in Trevor Horn's studio in England. Trevor Horn being a very distinguished producer, he produced Lexicon of Love by ABC. Remember the funky look of love? And I thought ABC was an American band. They sounded American. But he produced that album. It was one half of the Buggles. They did that song, Video Killed the Radio Star, back in the winter of 79 and 1980. But now, he did not produce that album, Learn to Walk. The other ones, they co-produced the album with an engineer, and they really got into it. They had a robust budget to pull off the album, but it did not do well, did not come out well at all. And they broke up in 1990. The other ones, oh boy, what a record. Holiday at number, I was trying to think of something else, just something else I wanted to say about this record. But I think this is just another fine Euro dance, Euro pop record that just went right through the cracks. But not on my fancy playlist, my friend. Got that baby up at number 27. Up 8 from 35 on the fantasy playlist of August 29th, 1987.